Hi. Yeah, so that woman that you saw just now was me. I started doing this work in 2007. So at that time, right, I was selected to do a workshop in Siem Reap in Cambodia. And then I was very young. I was like, how old was I? I was like 22 years old. And we had to do a body of work when we got selected. So I only had like 1 week to work. So at that time, for the first few days, I didn't know what to do, and I was not good at photographing strangers. I mean, I didn't really know how I feel about photographing strangers, so I had a lot of difficulty. And then after a while, I decided that okay, maybe I can photograph myself. So I started to try to play different characters. Like, I was first a tuk-tuk driver, and then I tried to make a story about myself as a tuk-tuk driver, but it didn't really work out. And then after that, I tried to be a construction worker. So I went to the construction sites and I exchanged clothes with them. And I tried to make a story about that, but it didn't really work out also. And I think that probably it didn't work out because like those are just vocations, you know. That means in my real life I can be a construction worker, or I could actually be a tuk-tuk driver if I wanted to. But I can't really be a woman, right? So I thought that that character has more room for me to explore. And also I feel that by working in this way, I don't use anybody except myself. So I thought that was a better way of working, a more interesting way of working. I want to be able to write myself into the story, you know. So I decided to do that, and then I didn't really think that I would do the work for another like 2 to 3 years. But then the character, I find her very attractive, very addictive. So I carried on doing the work until 2009. There are a couple of things that I found quite interesting in the course of doing this work. So the first thing that I thought maybe I could talk about is when I dress up. So the first time I dressed up as Shauna, so I had a friend who works in the red light district circuit in Siem Reap, and she's a transsexual woman. So the first night I approached her, I said, you know, could you help me out? Maybe you can help me with my makeup. And she was very glad to do it. And then she brought along a razor, and she started to shave my legs and everything. And I had bought a wig of a mannequin at this store a little bit outside of the city for $30. And then that night, I thought that if it doesn't go well and I look like shit, then I'm not going to go out. I'll just maybe take some pictures in my room and play it off from there, you know, like see how it goes. But then when they were done, and I went to like look at myself in the mirror, I look pretty good, man. And then it's a very strange feeling. Like, this is the first thing that I thought I could talk about because maybe it has something to do with the theme. Like, it's a very strange feeling when you look at yourself in the mirror, you cannot recognize yourself, you know. And then you feel different, like you really feel like you're somebody else. So I decided, okay, I don't look like myself. and I look pretty good. I should go out. So I went out, and I went to all the places that they go, the streets that they go, the bars that they go, and everything that I do, right, it's like I'm doing it for the first time in my life. Because I'm doing it as somebody I've never been. If I take a smoke, it's like, wow, I've never done this before, you know. If I sit down, have a drink, it's like I've never done it before. Because I feel like a new person. So that was a very satisfying feeling. And also, the thing about photography is that sometimes it can be a very violent thing, especially in a place like that. So I mean, there are people, you know, you see them going around, they're taking pictures of street children with the camera, and sometimes you do feel like, oh, this is quite violent, you know. But when I became Shauna, I really feel like there's a reversal of roles, even though I'm not the photographer. I mean, you have to give up some control when you make work like that, because a lot of times you cannot take the pictures yourself. But I don't feel powerless in any way. Now I feel like I am even more powerful being in front of the camera. So maybe that is one of the interesting things about performance. And the other thing that I think I should talk about also is that, so I did the work for like from '07 to '09. So I met a lot of people from this community, both in Siem Reap and in Singapore. And the interesting thing is that in Siem Reap, right, there are some places that I frequent. I mean, they're not around anymore now when you go back, because they've cleaned up the place a lot. But at that time, there are some places I frequent. They actually know what I'm doing. Like, they know that I'm doing this as a work. But when I go as myself, they treat me very differently, even though they know that yesterday I was there as Shauna, you know. And I always wondered why. Like, when I go as Shauna, they will treat me like one of them. And they'll be very happy to pose in my pictures. But then when I go as myself, they'll always try to ask me to take them home. I can't figure it out. Maybe it's really to do with like how you look. It actually really affects like we are very bound to our perceptions, you know. And sometimes a lot of it is based on how you look. And when I'm dressed up as Shauna, I don't speak, because my voice is not feminine. So it'd be really weird, you know, if I just start talking in a man's voice. So I don't speak. I walk in the same places where they walk, and I go to the same bars that they go to. Sometimes I get picked up by men, but it's very weird because I don't say anything. But I'm hoping for something to happen so that I can get the pictures. So it's a matter of how long they stay around before they realize, like, she's weird, you know, she doesn't say anything. But if it gets too out of control, then the photographer will come in, or whoever I'm using will come in to just sort it out. There are a couple of ways of shooting this thing. There's sometimes I have the chance to set my camera up with lights and everything, and I can use a timer or a remote so I can take the pictures myself. But then the best way of working, and also the most difficult way of working, is when I go out. I really want to get into character. I want to perform well. I want to lose myself, you know. So I will go to places where there are a lot of other people, and I always just get a photographer who doesn't know photography, like just a guy who doesn't know photography, to follow me, and I set everything for him. And then I just ask him to just take as many pictures as possible. And then after that, you go back home, and it's a matter of editing. And maybe out of like 1,000 pictures, maybe you get one good one that you can use. So technically I think that's a more difficult way of working. But it's a more interesting way of working, because you really have the chance to perform. And for me, that's the main that's the thing that I cherish most about the work, the performative aspect of it. Even though I did it just for the pictures, you know, I don't think I'm a performance artist. You know, I did it just for the photographs. So when I look back now, it's been a long time. I cherish this experience a lot. Sometimes when I look at the pictures, sometimes I don't really feel like, hey, I actually did this, you know. And I got to know a lot of people from doing this work. I've been going back there every year since 2007. Every year I go back, I see less and less of them. People that I used to meet, I used to hang out with them, you know. I see less and less of them. Sometimes you hear some stories that some of them are missing. And quite a lot of them, they get pushed to work near the river. If you go to Siem Reap before, there's a river, and it's very dark. And like, if you work there, it's not good for you, because the clients are weird people, and you get a lot less money. But this time I went back with my book. I found one of them, and I gave her my book. She appeared in the pictures actually. She helped me with my makeup the first time, and she was very happy to have my book. And then I realized, and then next day I went to find her again, and she was still holding my book. So she's like carrying it around with her wherever she goes. So I thought that's nice. A couple of years I went back, I found one of them again. Her name is Marilyn. She also appeared in the pictures. And she told me that she's not doing this thing anymore. Like, she left the red light district circuit, and she's a hairdresser now. She found this guy to like take care of her. So that was a nice story, you know. And actually, I'm not sure like if this has anything to do with the theme. So I thought I looked quite pretty. So I don't know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that, Sean. I just had a question about whether you think it's changed you permanently or in any significant way, the experience.
I think so. But if you ask me why it is, I can't really say. But I think it must have. But I thought that actually only recently I thought about like what I learned when I was interviewed by this magazine. So like they asked this kind of similar question: what do you learn from doing this work? Actually, if I have to be honest, right, the thing that I learned, right, is that I really don't know a lot of things. Like even after doing this, I don't know what it's like to be born male, but I always wish that always knew actually that you are not, you know. To go through that, I don't really know what it's like. I mean, from talking to them, I can kind of understand, but I will never know what that's like. But that's only half the problem. Like the other problem is that why are so many of them forced into prostitution? Like that, I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't know. Even though all of my friends there are doing this, still I wouldn't know what it's like to go through that. You know, I mean, for me, when I was young, like your youth is a time of learning, right? Of falling in love, learning, going to school, play, and all these things. But for them, it's different. Like their youth is something that can be bought or sold. So in the making of this work, especially in the editing and in the making of my book, I'm just trying to find some small patch of common ground, you know, that I share with them. So I try, when I make a book or I make a show, I try to include images about longing and snapshots that I shared with these people. Hopefully it makes me less of a dick, you know, doing work like that. You learn to understand people, you try to have more empathy. Hopefully that's what happened. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions from the floor? Maybe I can ask Sean. So have you ever found yourself in a situation where it was quite life-threatening, and could you describe that experience?
No, there's no life-threatening situation. It's not something that, it's not that bad, actually. Like, at first when at first when I thought about it, I thought it would be like dangerous. I mean, of course, there are some places that it's a bit more risky, but it's never life-threatening. I mean, the thing is the thing also is that you want to be in a position where something can happen. Of course, you don't want it to happen, but you need to go to a place where it's possible that something might happen to you. Yeah.
What about violence? Were you subjected to any violence when?
I mean, some people who pick me up a bit more insistent than others, but I wouldn't say that they are violent, just that they are persistent. But they are also drunk, and it's not just me who's there. There are other people there, other girls there. So I think if it doesn't work, they go to someone else, you know.
Okay. Anyone from the floor? All right.
Hi, I have a couple of questions actually. The dressing up aspect of it, do you think it helps you in the creative process of taking the pictures? And the second question is that after like this whole experience, I mean, you have a lot of friends there and you've been there for a couple of years. Do you think it's an issue that you want to talk about a little bit more, or is it something that you find quite personal?
Yeah, the dressing up, of course, it helps. Like when I always think that when I put on makeup, right? When I'm dressing up, I'm not trying to become like a prettier version of myself, you know. It's a very important. It takes me like 2-3 hours to get it done, you know. And I'm trying to put on another face, you know. I'm trying to become her, you know. I'm not trying to look like a better version of myself. So for me, that is absolutely crucial. I have to take my time to do it. It's not easy to do it because I'm not very good. So I take a long time. But it helps me get into character, you know. So that's very important. And the dressing and everything, when you remove your hair and everything, it's all part of it. What's the second question?
About like transgender and things like that, is it an issue that you would like to shed a little bit more light with, like in the community in Singapore? Like, because there are a lot of your friends who you care about who is in this issue.
Yeah, in fact, when I came back to Singapore, I joined this huge community of transgender people, and then they brought me out to like a huge party in Batam where everybody cross-dressed and everybody dressed up. It's crazy one. But I didn't manage to make a lot of pictures there. But if you ask me whether I want to shed light on this issue, I mean, I gather that you mean whether I want to take on this position of some kind of like mouthpiece. No, of course not. I'm not qualified in any way to do that. I'm not an expert, you know, and I'm not actually a transgender person, you know. So I don't have the right to do that, I think.
Anyone from the floor? Another question?
I just want to ask, how did you communicate with the person in Cambodia, since maybe they have their own languages?
No, they speak a little bit of English. I mean, the English is broken, but if you work at it, they will understand you. If you really need, you can get a fixer, but I don't want to do that.
So you don't have a problem like communicating?
No. You can draw things. I mean, sometimes the waitress. So the waitresses, they are not. They are really women, you know, and they work there really as a waitress. So they speak English a little bit, so they can help you translate. Yeah.
I think it takes a lot of courage to share this, and I feel a lot of emotions coming through as you're sharing. Are you able to share what are these emotions that you're feeling and why?
Emotions. I mean, there are things that I don't know how to put a name to the emotion. I mean, there are things that I felt very strongly about. I mean, when I was those time when I was doing the work, it's an amazing feeling, you know, it's exhilarating. And I really met people who, like, they really like Shauna. Like, it's not even a joke, you know, like they would tell me about it, you know. But of course I said, like, you know, hey, like, just relax, it's not gonna happen. But but for me, that's such a great thing to have experienced, you know. Like, when does the character that you play become real? Or how much does she characterize you? Like, who's playing who, you know? I love that feeling. I love that feeling of performing in this work, you know, of acting. Because at some point you don't know whether really there are points where I thought to myself, maybe I could do this. Maybe I can really do this. Maybe I can become this person. And I thought about it for a long time. And eventually I stopped the work because I couldn't. I thought about what it would be like to take the leap. I mean, this kind of work, you have to, for it to progress, you have to spare yourself of less and less. That's inevitable one. That's the nature of this kind of work. You cannot get away from it. If you don't progress, you have to stop. Because it's always going to require more and more of you. You have to cross boundaries. You have to take another greater leap if you want the work to move. And that will require you, like, really changing aspects of your life, of yourself. And I couldn't do that, you know. So when I realized I couldn't do that, I decided that, okay, I should stop this work now before it becomes some kind of stupid exercise, some game that you play. So in the end, I chose to stop. But at least I got that feeling, you know, of being on the edge of something. And I was exposed to a life that otherwise I wouldn't have been even remotely close to, you know. And until now, when I go back, they recognize me. I find that very heartwarming.
We got another question.
Hi, Sean. Just a question in terms of of Shauna. How did you actually create that persona, or how would you describe her as a person or as an individual when you were creating character? Did you come up with a backstory for her, or and also my other question is, when you stopped being her, what was it like to expose yourself back to a sense of normality, or in terms of getting on with a normal life again after the experience? How did you do that?
No, I think it's not so. Most of the time it's okay. I think the first few times when I dressed up and I went back, I didn't want to, like, sometimes there's some resistance to go back to being myself, but it doesn't last long. It doesn't last long at all. If it does, you'll be that'll be a crazy life. You can't do this work anymore. There were a few times, you know, when the day is done, I went back. I don't want to immediately remove all my makeup and everything. Just want to linger for a while, but those are the rare occasions. Those are rare, because I can tell you, right, when you go back home, you're very tired. It's very tiring, and being in that wig is very uncomfortable. I mean, you try not to think about it when you're out. You need to be responsible. You need to do your job well. You need to keep up the illusion, even if it's not for yourself, for other people. Because at some point, I realized that she's more. Some days she's more real to other people than me. Some days I'm not into it totally. But yeah, those are rare occasions. Most of the time, when I go back home, I'm exhausted, like completely exhausted. And you can't sleep immediately some more, you know.
That's great. Do we have any more questions? All right, one more.
So can you tell me, how does this whole entire creative process, going through the transformation and taking the photos and putting together a photo essay, how has it translated to your other work?
I don't know if it does. My other work, I don't know if it does, actually. Now the work I do is very different. And for me, even if it doesn't, it's okay. For me, it's okay that I make different stories or I try to tell different stories. I mean, there's this tendency, you know, to want to track somebody's. You know, if you've been a photographer for say like 50 years, then there's this tendency for people who want to track like your whole thing, you know, and see if it makes sense. I always think like if it really makes sense, something is wrong, right? Sometimes I feel that way. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I always feel that way. You know, like people are very different, and you go through different things, and sometimes you feel like doing different things. Like I wouldn't ever do anything like Shauna again. I know it for. I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll have one final question.
Hi, I have a related question, which is your more recent works focus on your family and your parents. So I'm just curious, what made you feel like choosing such a topic where the people are so close, or you know they know you very well, you know them very well? Thanks.
Because when I did my Shauna work, I ended in 2009, and I had a really big show in 2009. I had a show in Arles, in this very famous festival in France. And then, so obviously when I did this work, it's very difficult for my parents, especially my dad. I mean, he didn't protest, you know, but I know that he doesn't like it that I'm doing it. And he doesn't really talk to me about it. But when I was in Arles having my show, I got a text from him. And then he just said like, hey, don't give up. Which is like, after 2 or 3 years of doing Shauna, it's like him trying to tell me that it's okay. If I want to continue, it's okay. But then when I saw it, I was like, let's stop. I was already thinking about stopping. But when I saw the message, I thought to myself, maybe I should stop. Maybe I should photograph my parents. Yeah, that's how it happened, actually. I mean, I want to use photography to be like an introspective thing. I don't want to go out into the big world, into the big universe, and document like the issues, whatever the issues are, you know. My work is about small worlds. That's what I've always said. It's about tiny worlds. If I'm going to be like a storyteller, I want my stories to be about small things, regular people, and try to find something that speak about the larger world, hopefully, from all these small things, you know. So now I focus on my mom and dad and life at home.
Okay. Anyone has a heart-burning question? Well, maybe we have time for one more. Okay, no more. Great stuff. Let's put our hands together for Sean, please.